Hi kids, Brew here. As promised, I'm going to do a little demo on InDesign. And before I start, I want to remind you that we have used InDesign in class before. I think most of you forgot. We did it on the first project, the Secret Code project, and you had to open a template in InDesign for the secret code and then bring your images in and save your files in InDesign. So that first project was designed to teach you placing images in InDesign, also saving files. Now I'm going to teach you a couple of more tools in InDesign just to familiarize yourself with it. Let's start with opening a file. So you get a file and you're going to go to New and you go to Document, click on Templates. So you have letter, you have legal, you have tabloid, you have letter half, you have magazine spreads, you have all these things. And we're just going to open up one page. We're going to change picas to inches. 8.5 by 11 is fine. The choice you're going to make is vertical, or you can do horizontal. It doesn't matter to me. Just this is pretty much the basic steps. One page. We're going to have facing pages. We're going to start on page 1. Here you can decide how many columns you want. You can choose as many columns as you like. The column gutter is set at a default. You also have other choices if you need. The margins will be 1/2 inch. The bleed and slug will leave just the way it is. You'll learn more about these in your next class when you take typography. You can also select preview and see it as you're creating it. Up here, it can be for print, for web, for mobile, for saved. I'm going to choose right now for print since we are going to be printing our cards, and I'm going to create. So speaking of our cards, there is an InDesign template in Canvas where you can place your cards. You can give that a try just to do some practicing if you want. The tools I'm getting ready to show you, you probably won't so much need for that particular exercise, but I think you'll feel good to know about the things I'm about to show you. So I'm hitting Command or Control minus, Command minus for Mac, Control minus for PC to get a better size. First, I want you to see these 3 windows here. So we have the layers, which is something very similar to Illustrator. This is a little different. Illustrator has artboards. You have pages in InDesign, and we have the toolbox. The tools that we're going to be looking at today, this is a very basic lesson. This is the select tool, just like in Illustrator. Direct selection, just like in Illustrator. We have a text tool. We have a pen tool. It has all the functions that are the same as in Illustrator. We have a frame tool, which Illustrator doesn't have. We have a shape tool, rectangle, ellipse, polygon, that Illustrator does have. The fill box and the stroke box. So a lot of these tools already are very familiar to you. One of the things that InDesign is really good at doing is setting up files for print, setting up files for publishing online, which is real easy at a click of the button. And speaking of that, up here at the top right, you probably want to select Essential Classic. So make sure you check that just like you do in Illustrator. You also have this handy tool up at the top. So if I select the pen tool, it gives me all the options to change the stroke, the fill, the color, the width, the opacity, the angle, the direction, whether I want it centered or whether I want the reference point to be on the right or to the left. When I click on the text tool, it gives me the font. It gives me whether it's regular, bold, what kind of graphic it is. The size of the font, it gives me the leading, that's the space between the lines, the kerning, which is the space between the letters. Also, all of these various things are sizes and angles of the text, whether it's straight up and down or whether it's on an angle or whether it's horizontal. I have all of my choices for how I want the text to be oriented. If I want it to be justified to the left or aligned to the left, center, right, toward the spine, or away from the spine. All lines justified, justified with the last line aligned to the center, or justified with the last line to the left. If you need to have more type options, you can go to type and you can click on paragraph and character as well. And that will give you this option. So here you have your paragraph, all of your alignment options, but it also has an option down here to hyphenate or not to hyphenate. The selection tools work the same way as they do in Illustrator. This is the selection tool for a general selection, and this is the direct selection tool, which can select a portion of an object, or if there's two objects and you just want to select one and not the other. The frame tool and the shape tool tools are very similar. The frame tool or rectangle frame tool is basically used for placing, importing, dragging and dropping images and resizing them or placing them within your document, which I'll show you in a minute. The shape tool, although you can bring in images and sizes and images and change the sizes and things like that with the shape tool, you can also add shapes just like you do in Illustrator and create groups and that sort of thing. Of course, you know about the fill tool and the stroke tool. The fill tool will fill a shape or text, and a stroke tool will put an outline on something. And you control it the same way in InDesign as you do in Illustrator by using your points, your caps, or your miter limit, how you join, align, type, start and ends, and other choices that you would have in Illustrator. So that's not anything new to you. So why don't we begin with placing an image. I'm going to first use the rectangle frame tool, select it, and I'm going to create a frame right here. I can right click and I can paste into, or paste in place something that I've copied. Let's try it. Paste. So I have this image right here that comes up, and I can paste that into, and it gets a little bullseye right here. And if I right click on that, it gives me a chance to transform it, to arrange it, to select it, to fit it. And I strongly suggest that you play with these just when you're, just when you're sitting down at the computer. Just have in mind that you're just going to experiment and figure out what these different things do. You can also go to File, and you can go to Place, and anywhere on your computer where you have an image that you may want. I'm going to go to Photos and select this image and open. So you can see it shows me the image. I can put it right in that frame. What I need to show you is that if I double click on the image, you can see this anchor right here outside the image. And if I pull it, you can see that it makes the image bigger. So you can see that's orange. But if I come in here with my selection tool and I click off the image, what I get is this blue anchor box. That is my frame. So within there, if I right click on the little bullseye, I will get an option to fit the image or fill frame proportionally or fit content proportionally. So let's see what happens when we do that. That's a pretty good fit right there because I have a square frame and I have a square image. I can also right click, go to fitting, fit frame to content. So that makes the frame fit right to the content or to the picture size. I can choose fit content to frame or center content, and it's already centered, so I don't need to worry about that. Anyway, these are good things to play with and get comfortable with so that you can use them just like you know the back of your hand. Now that I have my object, I'm going to select everything. Now I can do pretty much the same thing with a shape. I can select a shape. Let's say I want to select an ellipse tool. I want it to be green. Hold down my Shift key just like I do in Illustrator and make a nice circle. And I want it to be green, and I do not want it to have an outline. So there's my circle. And let's say that I want to paste into. There's the eye. And if I right click on that, go to my selection tool, select the eye, I can do the same thing. I can fit to frame proportionally. I can center the content, which is already centered. I can just play around with these and see what happens. If I double click, you can see the orange bounding box around my image, and I can go Shift Option, and that will scale the image down on this anchor point right here. So the anchor point is in the middle, and it will scale it to the center. But what if I want this shape? This is like my eyedropper, and I want the stroke to be green. Then I can hold down my Shift Option, and it will make a circle, and I can increase the stroke on that circle. And using my Select tool, I can move it on top, Shift Option, and I can now I have a nice green frame around that eye. I can select everything, and I can right click, or I can go to Object, and I can group, or Command G or Control G. I can go to my text tool. I can go up to my toolbar, and I can select whatever font that I want. I'm going to choose Helvetica regular, and I want 24, and I want my leading to be 30. And that's just about all I'm going to change, except I'm going to change the color of the text to pink, just because it's a complement of green. You can see that it's hyphenated. This little red box right here means that there's a text overflow, text thing to show up. There we go. So you click on the red box, and then you just open it up, and it'll open up the overflow. Okay? So you've got to be right on it, though. So now I have this overflow of text, and I have this object. Well, what if I don't want the object to be covered in text? I'm going to move the text over here, and I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm going to select the object. Now you see that the object has a little dotted box around it. This means in the text wrap, and if you can't find text wrap, you just go to Window, and you find text wrap, and you click on it. This means there's no wrap. So if I put the text over here, there's, clearly nothing going to happen. Text wrap is kind of tricky too. So I'm hoping against all hope that it's not going to mess up on me. So if I select the object, you see I have one layer. So both of these are in the same layer. The next option is this one. When it wraps, it's going to hug this little box. But my object is round. So if I select my object and I go to this option with the circle, it will hug the contour of the object. And I'm going to lock that for now, and I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to put my text inside there. And you need to give the text a good bit of room when you're typing. There's all kinds of little things that can make this go flunky. 24, 30, all of my metrics are where I want them to be. And you can see that it's already wrapping around the text and that it's adhering to the box. The other quirky thing about text wrap is that if you find that you can't get it to work, you can right click on the text. Yeah, here it is. So you have to be in text. You right click on your text area and you go to text frame options and you click on that. And then here it says ignore text wrap. You want to make sure that's unchecked. So if you start to have troubles, that's what you want to do. We've done general text wrapping. So now here's another little thing that you can do. I'm going to create an ellipse. I'm just going to hold down Shift Option, and it makes a circle from the center. And use my selection tool and move it right down here. You can see that it has a bounding box. So even if I choose this to adhere to the contours, or come up here and you see it's selected. If I deselect and just select the layer in which the object is occurring, and I want it to detect the edges, So I want it to go right up against the circle. I don't want it to go up against the bounding box. So if I come in here and select, you can see the bounding box. So I'm going to switch over to the direct selection tool, and that bounding box goes away. Now you see this number right here is the number of inches away from the circle that the letters are going to go. So I can adjust this down to about, I'm going to say 0.18 inches, 0.1875 inches. I'm going to now go to this layer, text layer. This is image layer. And I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to text. I'm going to make a box for my text. I'm going to go, I've got Helvetica. I'm going to choose 24 points for the size of my font. I'm going to choose 30 for the leading. And I'm going to leave everything else the same except for the color. I'm going to choose turquoise. So now that I have all those things in place, I'm going to begin to type my text. And you can see that it's doing exactly what I want it to do. It is going around the circle to set to my specifications, which is pretty darn cool. Now the other thing is that if I keep typing, I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to come up here. I'm still in my text. I'm going to lock this. In here, I'm going to go to my text tool. Yeah, see that? See the little text right there? So all I have to do is bring this down here and make a new box, and the overflow text will show up in that new box. And that's it, kids, for the demo. I hope it was helpful. I'm sure that it brought up a lot more questions than it did answers. It's, as I said, this is just a basic intro to InDesign, and I hope you have fun with it. Bye for now.